Welcome, everyone. We thank you so much for joining us today as we honor those that gave all. And we hate the weather turned out the way it did. We usually love to have it, of course, on the property here, but unfortunately, it didn't work out to our best interest, so we've moved it into the funeral home. But I want to thank you all that are come today. I want to thank the ones that Roselawn Funeral Home, this makes, and he'll announce it makes 76 years of doing this, and I appreciate them. But I also want to thank Wright Funeral Services and Bassett Funeral Services and Collins McKees for also helping today. They were willing to help us, and I appreciate them so much. And on behalf of the management staff of Roselawn Funeral Home, it's our honor to do this, and thank you all for being here.
Certainly appreciate that, Kelly. As always, we really appreciate the use of your facility. We would much rather it be a much larger facility on the outside, but the weather doesn't allow it today, so we really appreciate that. As he indicated, this is the 76th annual Memorial Day service, and I'd like to begin, first of all, by just recognizing some VIP, important local government and community folks we have with us. We have with us Colonel Wayne Davis with the Henry County Sheriff's Office, Kathy Lawson, member of Martinsville City Council. We also have Mr. Danny Turner, who is a former member of Martinsville City Council. We have Curtis Milner, who is a many years long-term member of the Henry County School Board. We got Ralph Lawson, who is the Regional Red Cross Director with us. And this is his kind of weather, by the way. And we have Tammy Adams, who is a soldier and family readiness specialist with us, and she's given a lot of assistance to a lot of people and their families in the room as well. And we'll now. Is there anyone that I missed? I mean, everybody could stand up for that. So, but you don't have to. Everyone is special today. But we now we'll have our presentation of colors with the Magna Vista JROTC.
Colors. Hold. Present. Arms. Magna Vista High School requesting to post colors.
Post.
Order. Arms. Post.
We will all salute the flag. Is it order? Arms.
Right. Face. Forward. March.
Please continue standing. We will have the national anthem sung by Maxine Meyer.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whom broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the lampeers we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sing for the spangled banner yet wave. Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance with the Magna Vista JROTC cadet.
Pay allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We will now have the placing of the POW MIA flag with Joey Elliston. Attention, salute, order, arms. Please have a seat. Please take your seats. We will now have the invocation from Reverend Mark Hinchcliffe.
Will you pray with me? Gracious God, since the beginning of time in your creation, there has been conflict. The rise of that conflict sometimes brought correction of an order more in line with your plan for the world, but so often that conflict only arose because of a human desire for a perceived power over another. Conflict, which may have started in the local community as merely a disagreement, often escalated into violence, spreading to wider territories, nations, and even the world. In a lot of ways, not much has changed. Wars broke out, and history has pointed to those who were willing to fight and sometimes even willing to die to bring your peace to the world. We honor you, Lord, by honoring those men and women who paid the ultimate price of life for the freedoms of this country and a peace, though it may be only temporary, to promote the protection and promise of a safe community wherever they may live. A repeated cycle of blessing followed by fading satisfaction, fear, and conflict seem to plague humanity always. Lord, help us bring a peaceful existence to reality for our futures as more answer your calling to serve and protect each other. May this gathering today not only remember and honor those who have answered the ultimate call to serve this country, but also honor those who will fight for peace and security in the future. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
We will now have the dedication of Memorial Day, and we are honoring two local veterans, and I'll call on Thomas Spencer and Curtis Milner for that presentation. And we will be honoring in memory of Julius Reynolds and Larry Stanfield.
Will a family member of Julius Reynolds come forward, if anybody here? If not, Julius Reynolds was born in April 30, 1933. He grew up in the Preston community of Henry County. He was the parent of the Reverend David Alberta Spencer Reynolds. In the reunion, he was born 10 children, 5 boys, all who served in the United States military. He served as an educator in a 3-room building in Spencer, Virginia. He later moved to New York. Julius entered the United States Army on July 1952. He took his basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. He took advanced training in transportation to the heavy trucking driver. He also at Fort Knox, Kentucky. He went overseas to Germany. After several months assigned to France, he served out his time on tour in the United States Army with honorable discharge in 1954 as a Colonel E3. He returned from the Army, worked in several jobs. He was licensed as a professional heavyweight boxer. He trained with boxer Muhammad Ali. In his profession, he was 10-0. After taking an early retirement due to the time spent away from his family, he returned to the Martinsville-Henry County area in 1978. In 1980, he opened the World Travel Agent in Eden, North Carolina, with branches of offices in Greensboro, Durham. He was the first Black American to own and operate his own travel agency in Virginia and up the Eastern Shore between D.C. and Atlanta, Georgia. In 1997, he opened the Preston Ridge Water Plant in Preston, Virginia. He was listed as one of the 2 African American and owned his own operation and commercial water plant in the United States. He was also a generous contributor to Post 78, giving them water when they needed it, and supplied most of the Henry County schools with water during the time before his death. And I want to thank you.
Good morning. Are there any family members of Larry Darnell Stanfield? Would you please come forward, Mr. Stanfield? It's unfortunate that she was notified at a later date and the family had already made other plans, but thanks, she was able to alter her plans and to be here, and we're so thankful for that. Larry Darnell Stanfield, Sr., March 21, 1950, October the 13th, 2022, United States Navy veteran. Larry Darnell Stanfield Sr. was born in Danville, Pittsylvania County, Virginia, on March the 21st, 1950, to the late George Washington Stanfield and Celisa Allen Stanfield. He graduated from Langston High School, Danville, Virginia, and enlisted in the United States on November 1st, 1970. He was trained as a Marine mechanic, MOS 623, and on his first assignment was assigned to what is now referred to as the Brown Water Navy off the coast of Vietnam. For his service there, he was awarded the National Defense Service Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal with 1 star. After 2 years of service, and due to a decreased personnel requirement, he was honorably discharged as a Petty Officer 3rd Class E3 and assigned to the Naval Reserve Manpower Center, Bainbridge, Maryland, from whence he was discharged on April 23, 1975. Larry was married to Frances Galloway Stanfield, who's with us today, and they were the proud parents of daughters Jessica Stanfield and Denise Carter, and sons Larry Stanfield Jr., Corey Stanfield, and John Carter Jr. He was employed for over 30 years and retired from the Miller Brewing Company, Eden, North Carolina, as a maintenance planner. He was a member of the World of Life Tabernacle in High Point, North Carolina, and was a minister with the title of elder. He was a member of the American Legion Home Post 78, where he also served as a chaplain for over 12 years. He participated in many Martinsville-Henry County Veterans Service Organization Memorial and Veterans Day program and was always prepared to minister to those his fellow veterans whenever he was called on. Larry Stanfield Sr.
Service Organization, Martinsville-Henry County, Virginia, this December 29th day, 2023, Memorial Day ceremony. To Larry Stanfield, American Legion Home Depot Post 78. Thank you for you, your family, and your service.
Hold on, Elsie.
There. Balance it. I have one apology to make here, and we do have with us from the AMVETS, and they are to present to us the tribute of the POW MIA, and my apologies for missing that. But unless your eyes are a lot better than mine, you might have missed it too. So would y'all step forward, and we really appreciate that.
You may have noticed a small table in a place of honor. It's set for one. The table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them brothers. They're unable to be with us this evening, so we remember them. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. The yellow ribbon tied prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the yellow ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting for our missing. The candles lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. There's salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us today. The chair is empty. They are not here. All of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Until the day they come home, remember them.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Leonard Boyce, the Deputy Commander of the Veterans Honor Guard, to introduce the members of the Honor Guard.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor for me to introduce the Martinsville and Henry County Veterans Honor Guard. They are strong all around. We have a few of them over here, some in the back. They're kind of hard to pick up on today. As it's been stated before, because of the weather, we're not out like we normally are, but we are still here. Before introducing the Honor Guard, I'd like to just bring out a few things about these guys. It's the greatest bunch of guys I've ever worked with in my life. I've been in a lot of organizations, a lot of committees, but none as committed as this group of guys. We have a lot of guys that's 20-year plus veterans, so that speaks for itself when it comes to age. A lot of them are in their golden years, along with myself. But when you make a phone call, they're ready to go. And the thing that I like about them, sometimes we might do 4 or 5 funerals a week. We have done many as 3 a day. But those guys hang with us. Some have knee problems. Some have hip problems. But that's what happens when you get out in the advanced years. But one thing I can say about these people, you can't beat them. We have the best, the most outstanding Honor Guard unit in the state of Virginia. I will put them up against anybody, anytime, anywhere, under the leadership of our commander, Thomas Spencer. Is he still in the building? You know, I told people the first time they asked me to do it, I'm not a public speaker. I stumble and I bumble, but I try to get the job done. But along with all of that, like I said, you can't beat this group of guys. They are number one in the state of Virginia. I've seen quite a few units, none compare with these guys. If any of you all were with us last year, you remember I put out a plea last year that we needed members. We still need members. After I put the plea out last year, we picked up 5 shortly thereafter. But when you get up in age, anything can happen at any time. And we are at that stage, so we're pleading for younger troops to come forward and join the Honor Guard. And we also picked up, in that number 5, we picked up 3 females. First time since I've been in the Guard. So we keep praying and we keep working, and you all keep joining. Thank you.
Now, for the introduction of the Veteran Service Organization commanders and the auxiliary presidents, Wyatt Dillard.
Good afternoon. Will you please stand as I call your name? Post 42, Commander David Kipfinger. Post 78, Commander Warren Sonny Richardson. Auxiliary President Francis Cassie. Marine Corps Legion, Commander Walter Shepard. Ford Stewart. David Gillian. VFW Post 10840, Ken Barrow. AMVETS, Collinsville, Commander Carl Wright. Disabled Veterans, Commander Paul Shorter. Mark Thomas. Chapter 52, Mark Thomas. Post 29, Incoming Commander Henry Motley. American Legion 6th District Vice Commander Makia Barton. Thank you.
We really appreciate all of the veteran service organizations that come together for several events during the year, this being one of the major ones, and then we also have a Veterans Day later in the year. They really do a great job. Now I'd like to call on Curtis Milner to introduce our guest speaker. And I'll just make a comment. I'm hobbling because of a 10-year-old knee. He's on a cane because of about just a few month-old knee, so he'll get better. I probably won't.
You're too kind. Good morning. It's indeed a pleasure and an honor for me to be here this afternoon and introduce our guest speaker for this Memorial Day. Over 40 years ago, after retiring from the military with a 24-year career, I returned to Henry County and helped organize the Junior ROTC, and I'm happy that it's still active today. This was in '83. In '84, I was looking at my incoming class and saw a young man that was just eager, like he was ready. In those days, we referred to guys like that as gung-ho. You guys remember that title? Okay. This young man volunteered for just about everything there was. He was on the color guard, he was on the rifle team. He progressed through the ranks and became the battalion executive officer prior to his graduating. And perhaps the only person in this room that I've told this is Colonel King. You know, in life, sometimes you have to make decisions. Sometime later on, you realize that the decision you made was not always the best decision. Well, I've realized since then that Colonel Greg Phillips should have been the battalion commander. But I think it may have served as an incentive. Because as you can see by reading his bio, he continued to progress. He continued to volunteer for everything that was available. He left George Washington Carver High School after 4 years of junior ROTC, and he goes on to Radford University. And you know, Radford University is a branch of I lost it that quick. VPI, Virginia Tech. While there, I see that he volunteered and went airborne while taking ROTC. I'm not going to attempt to read this. Even if I tried, I couldn't because the print's so small and my eyes is not what they used to be. But I asked you in your time to take time and read this and study it. You can see the different positions that he held in life. You can see the different positions he held in the military. He was an ordnance officer. But then, having a desire for that edge, he decided to go EOD. And for those that don't know what EOD is, it's explosive ordnance disposal. They are the people that finds and defuses the bombs left here and there all over the place. And that is no easy task. It takes a lot of guts, it takes a lot of daring, it takes a lot of pride. So I'm going to skip through a lot of things here, primarily because I can't read it, and move down to some of his other achievements. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Radford University, Radford, Virginia, and a Master of Arts degree in Business and Organizational Security Management from Webster University. He is a graduate of the Air Defense Artillery Officers Basic Course, Combined Logistics Officer Advanced Course, U.S. Naval Explosive Ordnance Disposal School, U.S. Command Army and General Staff College, and Joint Combined Warfare Training. His awards and decorations include the Legion of Merit, Bronze Star Medal, 2 oak leaf clusters, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, 3 oak leaf clusters, Army Commendation Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters, Army Achievement Medal, and Master EOD and Parachuter's Badge. He's married. He has some of his family members here with him today. I just had a chance to meet his wife. I told her that she did a good job in these past few years. And she threw one back at me. She said, well, I heard a lot of good things about you. One of the things, I'm proud of everything he did, but one of the things I'm most proud of, after retiring with 25 years as a full bird colonel, we call it in the Army, he returned to the Martinsville-Henry County area, Pennsylvania County, and started teaching junior ROTC. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. And I wish we had more that would have that. As I look around Martinsville-Henry County, there's only 2 of us left. Is Sergeant Mann still here? Sergeant John L. Manns was with the Martinsville, and I was with the Henry County. And I think we're the only 2 left. Shortly thereafter, Colonel King followed us, and he was at Field L. Collinsville. But we need more. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to sit down. We need more people in our high schools, in the junior ROTC programs. I realize, Colonel Phillip realized, Sergeant Manns, and the Sergeant Wingfield realize these young people are our future. These young people are our future. We are not going to be able to fight the next war. I'm physically disabled and I'm old. So we need to prepare young men and women to be prepared to take the reins and continue to make this country what it is today. Without further ado, I introduce to you, and I'm proud to say, Colonel Charles Gregory Phillips. We call him Greg. And I told him earlier I would salute, but if I do, I might fall.
Chief. 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 Okay. First, let me thank the Veterans Service Organization for holding this ceremony today. It's an honor to be able to speak with you, to spend time with you, to recognize our nation's greatest heroes. I would also like to take a moment to thank my family for being here. As a service member, there's a lot of times that we get recognized. There's a lot of times that, there may be parades or ceremonies or events that recognize the achievements of service members. But too often, the family members don't receive the same glory. We're in uniform. We're recognizable. But I dare say, unless you're around a military post, a service member's family walks in and you're not going to recognize them. They serve right alongside of their service member. They sacrifice. They give up their time. They go through the struggles, the heartaches, along with their husband, their wife, their father, their mother, and even their sons or daughters. So I'm so proud to have my family here with me. They've stood by me throughout my career, and I don't want to lay this on them, but a big reason why I decided that my time serving my country on active duty was at an end was I felt the need to take care of my family like they've taken care of me. When you see the struggles that families go through as their service members deploy over and over again, move every year or two, there's times that taking care of home six is part of your responsibilities as well. So I'm proud of my service, but I'm just as proud, or even more so, proud of my family. So thank you for being here today. Finally, I'd like to take a moment and publicly thank someone who has made a lifelong impact on me since I was a young high school student. Chief Miller, as you may have heard, was my JROTC instructor my 4 years in high school. And since then, after my military career, and now as a JROTC instructor myself, I can truly appreciate the sacrifice that our instructors make on a daily basis. You see, when the kids want to do stuff after school, when they want to go to a drill meet, or you're participating in a drill meet somewhere in North Carolina or somewhere else, when they want to do now, we didn't have it back then, but Raiders, when they do Raider competitions, and when they're doing rifle team and they're doing color guards because you're trying to support your school and your community, the person that makes that happen is that JROTC instructor. And if you're lucky, and you actually have the two instructors that you're supposed to have, we can kind of play off of each other a little bit. And that means that, you may only have to stay after school a few extra hours 3 days a week versus 5 days and the weekend. So I truly appreciate now that I've been doing this job for about 6 years now, the sacrifices that Chief made for us. So thank you very much for the impact that you made on my life and the countless other JRTC cadets that came through your program. You made a world of difference. Even if we didn't say it at the time, what we've done since then, I think, is an example of the impact that you've had on us. Thank you. Today we're honoring those who gave all to our nation. Some of you may know that it was originally called Decoration Day. And it was started by communities around the country right after the Civil War to recognize those that lost their lives during that terrible conflict. And it expanded from there. In fact, it was made a national holiday in 1971. And since that time period, when it started, we've lost over 1 million servicemen and women in support of our nation's conflicts across the globe. However, for a growing part of our population, the holiday has become just another weekend of store sales, cookouts, possibly a day off from work, and time to seriously start thinking about summer activities. For those in our nation who do not personally know one of the less than 1% who have served our nation, there is no personal connection to the true meaning behind the day that we're observing today. However, for those of you who have served, for our families, our close personal friends, this day has a deeper meaning. It is a time to remember those that sacrificed all, those whose absence is felt within us. It's a time to reflect on the sacrifice, what that sacrifice means to us personally and to our nation. Today, I would like to share with you some of the lives that I hold close to me this holiday. Today, I'd like to remember Sergeant Joseph Ropsky. You're going to have to bear with me on this. During my first company command, Sergeant Ropsky joined our unit right after finishing the EOD school. He was a former communications soldier. He was a solid performer who easily got the respect of every member of our unit. And at that time, an EOD company was just over 20 people, including the commander and the first sergeant. So it was a very small unit indeed. Among the many times that I was able to work with him, one of them was on a day when we were out clearing the training area at the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, California. And sitting down inside of a little bowl in the terrain was a 155 millimeter white phosphorus artillery shell. Since that terrain would not allow us to use the radio-controlled initiation system from a safe distance, we selected an area that we thought would be safe, placed the charge to blow the white phosphorus up into the air the way you're supposed to, with the intent of having the nice white streamers go flying into the air away from us. Unfortunately, the charge that we placed did not quite overcome the explosive charge in the center of the artillery shell the way we thought it was going to do. And instead, we had the white streamers arc gracefully over the air, right over the top of our heads, and begin raining down around us. We were fortunate that day. Not only did we not get hit by any of the white phosphorus that was coming down from the sky, But it also missed our Humvee that was parked in our safe area. All the little pieces of white phosphorus landed around the Humvee instead of on it. So we were able to drive back to the post that day instead of taking that long and humiliating walk back and then try and explain how we'd lost a Humvee out in the desert to an artillery shell. When I changed command, I left Sergeant Ropsky and the remaining members of the unit. And I had no idea that they would be tasked to deploy to Iraq shortly afterwards. Sergeant Ropsky, now Staff Sergeant Ropsky, had developed into a really good team leader and EOD soldier. Unfortunately, he did not return. He did not return from that rotation to rejoin his family and continue his service. On September 10th, 2003, while deployed to Baghdad, Staff Sergeant Ropsky was killed by the ordnance he was trying to clear. In his memory, his unit had a coin made. And among the many coins I have from general officers, units, and others, and a small display rack that I've used to display the ones I've received over my career, his sits front and center. It serves as a constant reminder that among the small tokens that represent my own achievements during my career, his life and memory merits the position of honor. Unfortunately, Sergeant Ropsky is not the only service member whose loss has impacted me personally. In December 2004, I deployed as the operations officer for the EOD battalion to which I was assigned. Within 3 weeks of our arrival, Specialist Corey Hewitt, a member of the 705th EOD company deployed to Mosul, was sitting down with some of his fellow soldiers to eat at Bob Merez dining facility, in a place that should have been a safe haven. An Iraqi soldier wearing a suicide vest detonated in a room filled with service members. That day, our nation lost 13 of our finest citizens and soldiers. But those weren't the only lives that were impacted that day. Countless family members and fellow service members were also faced with the reality that a husband, father, son, or friend would not be there to share in the special little moments that make up our lives. One of his fellow soldiers from the 705th was sitting right next to him that day. He survived only because he had chosen just before that to get up, go back up to the line, and get something else to eat. Instead of being grateful to survive, he continued to suffer from the feeling that he should have been there right alongside his friend. A new year would not bring solace to the soldiers of our unit. Within 2 months, we would lose 3 additional members who were conducting EOD operations in Iraq. Staff Sergeant Christopher Shepard, who was killed on 11 February 2005 in Baghdad, hailed from Lynchburg, Virginia, just up the road. Sergeant Shepard was stationed at Camp Victory, which was right outside of Baghdad, which was where our headquarters was at. In fact, his company headquarters was just down the road from us. His unit, the 67th, was among the most active EOD units within the country. Of the 6 team leaders assigned to an EOD unit at that time, 5 of them received Purple Hearts.
Two of those, including Staff Sergeant Shepard, received their Purple Hearts posthumously. Shortly after he was buried, we received a photo from one of our sister EOD battalion command sergeant majors we had actually replaced them in theater shortly before that. He was standing there presenting a flag. To a small boy with the same red hair as his father. The next 2 weeks were an especially rough time for our soldiers and families. On the 23rd of February, Staff Sergeant Eric Stephanie of the 18th EOD Company was killed by a secondary IED device while he was clearing the initial one. And the very next day, we lost Staff Sergeant Daniel Gresham from the 797th EOD Company, and again, to a secondary device. For our small command, this time period was one of uncertainty, sorrow, and an overwhelming desire to prevent the loss of any more of our soldiers. We struggled to make sense of their loss, determined what we needed to do to safeguard our remaining teams, tried to identify what procedures we needed to change, and how we could address the needs, the emotional needs, of their fellow soldiers still conducting operations in theater. Sergeant Grisham was not the last soldier that we lost during our time in Iraq. Almost at the end of their 6-month rotation, which the companies were on a 6-month rotation, the second team leader within the 767th, Staff Sergeant Russell Verdugo, was killed on the 23rd of May while responding to an IED. That unit, devastated by the loss of 2 of their team leaders, was stood down to allow them time to prepare themselves for redeployment and to spend some time to begin their own healing. To this day, about 18 years, 13 years, to this day, when I think about that time in Iraq, I still have the same feelings. Same worries, same sense of loss. It's those types of experiences that weigh on our service members and their families every time they're called to deploy overseas. In my own case, I knew the impact it had on me. When as a new battalion commander, my headquarters was set to deploy to Afghanistan in August of 2011. We were headed to support operations in the Kandahar region. That deployment was for me the most emotionally challenging. Not only had I lived through the experiences in Iraq in 2005, but now I had my own family that depended on me, and a family that I love deeply. And that I wanted to return to more than anything. Boarding the plane to Afghanistan with my battalion headquarters there at the time, Fort Bragg, was one of the most difficult things I've done in my career. My sense of duty to my command, to my own soldiers, kept me moving to the plane. Despite having despite having to unwrap the arms of my oldest daughter, who was desperately clinging to me. As I walked through the roll-up door in the hangar with my command, I was followed by the cries of a 5-year-old daughter. Who was yelling, "Daddy, don't go." My youngest daughter was only 3 at the time. And she just had this look of confusion on her face. She didn't fully understand what was going on while her and her sister were being held back by my wife, who was doing an amazing job keeping her own emotions in check for the sake of our girls. My overwhelming fear at that time was that I, like the soldiers in Iraq, would not return to my family's embrace, but to their tears of sadness. During my tour in Afghanistan, although our mission load was high, only once did I and my sergeant major board the back of a plane that was transporting the flag-draped casket of one of our own soldiers back to the United States. Responding to an IED, Staff Sergeant Israel Nuanis of the 741st DoD Company was killed on 12 May. 3 short months later, I walked off a plane to a welcome home ceremony with my fellow soldiers. In front of us was a crowd of happy family members and military leaders. Unlike me, Staff Sergeant Nuanis and the other soldiers that I've spoken of today returned home in a solemn procession of families trying to deal with the pain of loss and the knowledge that there would not be a return embrace of their loved one. You see, the lives of our service members we honor today have meaning. To our nation, they are heroes despite the hardships, the personal challenges, the uncertainty of military service in a foreign conflict, and they answered the nation's call and paid the ultimate cost. To their families, they are heroes who shared laughs, held their loved ones close, read stories to their child, and are a memory that they dearly hold close to their hearts each day. I believe I got a bit of tenderness in my heart from my dad. I'm sorry. My dad's actually buried not too far from out here. He was a veteran of the Korean War. But I'll be honest enough to say that when I see a video or a commercial sometimes of a service member returning home to their family with hugs and smiles and tears of joy, I get misty myself. Because I, like many of you, personally know that these moments are to be cherished. Because as a service member, or a service member's family, they're not guaranteed. So today, if you have your family member with you, hug them. Tell them you love them. share a special moment with them. But also, remember the servicemen and women and their families who have sacrificed all for you to have those moments. Because they are our true heroes. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. May God bless our nation, our servicemen and women, their families. And may we always honor those who have enabled us to enjoy the freedoms that we hold dear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Phillips, for there's a whole lot of reality in Memorial Day, and to not only have the individual speak of it, but also the inclusion of his family, which involves all of us, and I really do appreciate that, sir. We will now have the memorial prayer with David Gillerin.
Please uncover. Let us pray. Almighty God, the Lord of hosts, we come into your presence this afternoon knowing that your mercies are new and great is your faithfulness to us. We thank you for the promise that underneath us are the everlasting arms. And yet, on this particular day, we remind ourselves that those who have gone before us, who have worn the uniform of our country in its different branches, have given the last full measure of devotion that we might indeed sleep peaceful at night in the land of the free and the home of the brave. We will age, but they will not age. They will remain the same as we grow old, as we begin to deal with the physical infirmities of living life, and as we look in the mirror and see that indeed that there are lines there that were not there at one time, their picture will remain unchanged, not only physically, but in the memories of their loved ones. And so, O Lord, we thank you for the fact that they were willing to serve, but also they were willing to give of their own lives that we might be free. We ask, O Lord, that we would not forget their service, that, Lord, that we would remember not only on this particular day, but every day of the fact that they answered the call and gave of themselves for their family, for their friends, and for their country. For this we ask in your name and for your sake. Amen. Please cover.
Could we all please stand with the while we proceed with the retrieval of the POW MIA flag? Joey Ellison. Present arms. We will now have the laying of the wreath with Joey Elliston and JROTC cadet. Please be seated. We will now have the three volley salute.
Right, face. Ready. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Left, face. Present, home.
I now call on Reverend L. Mans for our benediction.
God is our refuge and our strength. Right now, a spiritual gospel song is ringing in my spirit. Glad to be in the service one more time. And I'm glad to be in the service with these great service members. I'm a man who had 12 Article 15s in the Army, got busted twice, but now I'm wearing the rank, honorary rank of a first lieutenant and assistant chaplain of the Martinsville-Henry County Honor Guard. Don't tell me what God can't do. Bow with me. May the Lord bless thee and keep thee. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. Amen.
Again, thank you all for coming, WC. Thank you for a fine job that you did. And I want to especially thank St. Fulcher for helping us put this together. Couldn't have done it without him. And thank you all. We just pray that you'll have a blessed afternoon, and we pray for your safe travels. God bless you, and thank you.